Welcome to the deep dive. This time, the source you sent in is a big one. Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, yeah, the classic. And, it's been around for decades now.
It really has. But what strikes me, and I think you mentioned this too, is just how relevant it still feels. I mean, the world's changed massively since it first came out.
It absolutely does. And Covey actually addressed that. He said something like, the greater the change and more difficult our challenges, the more relevant the habits become.
Right, because the underlying problems.
Exactly. The problems, the pain, they're kind of universal, aren't they? And he argued the solutions are always based on these timeless, self-evident principles, things you see across history in societies that last.
So he wasn't really inventing these habits, was he?
Not at all. It's more like he identified them, put them together, organized them into this framework that clearly resonated with people.
And it's not just like a random list.
Yeah.
He really emphasizes how they connect, how they build on each other. The order matters.
Totally. It's a whole system, an integrated approach. You can't really pick and choose effectively.
So where do we start to unpack this? What's the foundation?
The foundation really is understanding paradigms. That's the first big concept.
Paradigms. Okay, so what are we talking about there? Like a perspective.
Yeah, pretty much. Think of it as your mental map, your assumptions, your theories, your frame of reference. It's the lens through which you see everything.
Like those optical illusions. The picture where some people see an old woman, others see a young woman, same picture, different perception.
Exactly that. It shows how powerful our internal frames are. And the critical thing is our attitudes, our behaviors, they all stem from these paradigms. How we see the problem is the problem, often.
So changing how you see things, that's the paradigm shift.
Precisely. And those shifts can be huge. They can unlock massive change. He talks about this broader societal shift from what he termed the character ethic.
Which is about like integrity, humility, courage, core values.
Right, to the personality ethic, which focuses more on, public image, skills, techniques, quick fixes, maybe seeming effective rather than being effective at a deep level.
And Covey argues that shift might have been, well, not entirely positive.
Yeah, potentially moving us away from the deeper roots of effectiveness. And the 7 habits, they're firmly planted back in that character ethic.
Based on principles.
Principles,
Yeah.
universal, timeless ones. You find echoes of them everywhere, different religions, ethical systems, philosophies. They're part of the human condition, really.
So it's not about relying on, say, your job title or authority to get things done.
No, that's external. The real strength, the lasting effectiveness comes from inside, from your character, your understanding, your empathy, how you nurture relationships.
He uses that example, doesn't he? The father trying to force his kid to share toys.
Yeah. Using authority might get temporary compliance, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't build the character of sharing, the understanding behind it.
It's that inside-out approach again. Build the core first.
And this leads directly to what he calls the maturity continuum. We move from dependence
Like needing others to take care of us.
to independence, where you're self-reliant, you can manage yourself.
And then finally to interdependence.
Right. Where you realize that working with others effectively is actually a higher state. And the first 3 habits 1, 2, and 3, they're all about achieving independence. He calls them the private victories.
You got to win those internal battles first.
Absolutely. They're the foundation for the public victories, the habits focused on working effectively with others. You can't build strong interdependent relationships if you haven't mastered yourself first.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's tackle habit 1. Be proactive.
Right. This is fundamental. Proactivity is basically recognizing that between what happens to you, the stimulus, and how you react the response, there's a space.
And in that space.
There's our freedom to choose your response. It's about taking responsibility, or responsibility, as he puts it, your ability to choose.
It's the opposite of being reactive then. Blaming circumstances, other people, your mood.
Exactly. Reactive people are driven by feelings, by conditions, by their environment. Proactive people are driven by their values.
He mentions Viktor Frankl.
Right.
The idea that even in the most horrific circumstances, you still have that ultimate freedom to choose your attitude, your response.
Yes, a profound insight. Even when external circumstances are terrible, your inner response is still yours to control. Think about people facing terminal illness with incredible grace and positivity. That's proactivity in action.
And you can hear it in language, can't you?
Oh, definitely. Reactive language takes power away from you. That's just the way I am. He makes me so mad. I have to do this. I can't.
It implies you're not in control, Whereas proactive language is more like, I can choose a different approach. I control my own feelings. I will choose an appropriate response. I prefer.
It reflects an internal locus of control. You're the driver, not the passenger.
It applies to emotions too. He has that interesting take on love.
Yeah, love is a verb. It's not just a feeling that comes and goes. It's about the action of loving, serving, sacrificing, listening, empathizing. The feeling often follows the action.
That's quite empowering, actually. You choose to act lovingly, even if the feeling isn't overwhelming right then.
Exactly. And to build this proactive muscle, he suggests that 30-day test
Right, making small commitment.
to yourself or others, and then keeping them. It builds integrity, self-awareness, and the sense that you are in charge of your choices. Start small. Build trust with yourself.
Okay, so that's habit 1, being proactive. That leads us to habit 2.
Habit 2, begin with the end in mind.
So, starting with a clear destination, knowing where you're going before you set off.
Precisely. It's about defining your personal vision, your values, what success truly means to you. Otherwise, you can get caught in the activity trap.
Ah, yes, being busy, busy, busy.
Working really hard, climbing the ladder.
Only to find the ladders leaning against the wrong wall.
Exactly. All that effort, but heading in the wrong direction. You might be efficient, but not effective towards what actually matters.
That funeral exercise he suggests is pretty powerful for clarifying that, isn't it?
It really is. Imagining your own funeral, what you'd want people to say about your character, your contributions, your relationships, that cuts right to the core of what you value. It helps define your personal end.
And this is where leadership comes in, before management.
Yes, great distinction. Management is about doing things right, efficiency, climbing the ladder fast. Leadership is about doing the right things, making sure the ladder is on the right wall.
So you need personal leadership first. You need to define your right things.
Before you start managing your time and resources to achieve them. And the key tool for this personal leadership is the personal mission statement.
Like a personal constitution.
Yeah, exactly. A written document outlining your core values and principles. It becomes your standard, your guide for making decisions, for allocating your time and energy.
He talks about different centers people might have, right? Like being spouse-centered or money-centered or work-centered.
Right, and he points out the vulnerabilities of each. If your whole security comes from your job, what happens if you lose it? If it's based on your spouse, what if their relationship struggles? These external centers can be unstable.
So he advocates for being
Principle-centered. Basing your security, guidance, wisdom, and power on timeless, unchanging principles that provides a much more stable internal foundation.
It helps in making tough choices too, doesn't it? Like that example of having a concert ticket, but your boss needs you to work late.
Exactly. Different centers lead to different decisions. A principle-centered person weighs the relevant principles, maybe commitment, integrity, responsibility, and makes a conscious choice based on those values, rather than just reacting emotionally or based on external pressures.
It connects back to that idea of finding meaning from within. Frankel's idea, again, life asks us the meaning, and we answer with responsibility.
Yes. Our mission statement helps us define that responsibility, and writing it engages both sides of the brain, the creative, intuitive right side and the analytical, logical left side. It helps align what you believe with how you act.
So visualization, imagining your ideal future, that's part of this too.
Definitely. Mental creation precedes physical creation. Seeing the desired outcome clearly in your mind makes it more likely to happen. But again, Covey warns it needs to be tied to character and principles, not just used for selfish gain.
Okay, so we're proactive. Habit 1, we know where we're going. Habit 2, now habit 3.
Habit 3, put first things first. This is the habit of personal management. It's where habits 1 and 2 come together in practical day-to-day action.
This is where the famous time management matrix comes in. Right?
Exactly, that 4-quadrant grid based on urgency and importance.
Quadrant 1, urgent and important. Crises, deadlines, firefighting mode.
Right. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important. Interruptions, some calls, some meetings, things that demand attention but don't contribute much to your goals.
Quadrant 4, not urgent and not important. Trivia, time wasters, escape activities.
And the key quadrant, Quadrant 2, important but not urgent.
The strategic stuff.
Yes. Planning, prevention, relationship building, exercise, learning, recreation. All the things we know we should do, but often don't because they aren't demanding immediate attention.
And effective people live in quadrant 2.
As much as possible, yes. They focus on prevention and opportunity, which shrinks quadrant 4. They learn to say no to quadrant 3 activities, and they minimize quadrant 4.
Because saying yes to unimportant stuff means saying no to important stuff.
Precisely. You only have so much time and energy. Every yes to something trivial is an implicit no to something potentially vital in quadrant 2.
It reminds me of that story of the writer getting bogged down in admin tasks.
Yeah, classic example. Pulled away from his high priority, quadrant 2, writing by urgent but less important requests.
Covey suggests if you struggle with discipline here, it might actually be a habit 2 problem.
Often, yes. If your priorities aren't deeply internalized, if your why isn't strong enough, you won't have the compelling reason to prioritize quadrant 2 over the tyranny of the urgent. Your yes to your core purpose needs to burn brighter.
So traditional time management tools might miss the mark.
Many do, he argues. They focus on efficiency, on checklists, but not necessarily on effectiveness aligned with deep values. Habit 3 requires a different approach weekly. Quadrant 2 organizing, centered on your principles and mission statement.
So it's not just about scheduling tasks, but scheduling your priorities.
Exactly. And it also allows for flexibility. If you're principle-centered, you might deviate from your schedule for a higher value, like helping someone in need, but you do it consciously, peacefully, because it aligns with your principles. It's not just being reactive.
And delegation fits in here too.
Big time.
Yeah.
Effective delegation is crucial for leveraging your time and focusing on your highest priorities. But it needs to be stewardship delegation, not gopher delegation. Gopher delegation is go do this, then this, then this, micromanagement. Stewardship delegation focuses on results, not methods. You clarify the desired outcome, the guidelines, the resources, accountability, and consequences. Then you let the person figure out the best way to do it. It empowers them and frees you up. It's fundamentally a quadrant 2 activity.
Okay, so habits 1, 2, and 3 build that independent character. The private victories, now we move outward.
Yes, into interdependence.
Huh?
But you can't be effectively interdependent without first being effectively independent. That personal strength is the prerequisite.
And the key concept for navigating relationships is?
The emotional bank account. The EBA. It's a brilliant metaphor.
Like a measure of trust in a relationship.
Exactly. It represents the amount of security, the amount of trust you've built up with someone. Positive interactions are deposits, negative ones are withdrawals.
And you need a healthy balance for a good relationship.
Absolutely. A high balance allows for communication, collaboration, even mistakes without shattering the relationship. A low or overdrawn account means everything is tense, communication breaks down, there's no trust.
So what kind of things count as deposits?
Covey lists 6 major ones. First, really understanding the individual, knowing what matters to them, what constitutes a deposit in their eyes, not just yours.
Tailoring it to the person, okay?
Second, keeping commitments. This is huge. Breaking promises, even small ones, is a massive withdrawal. Reliability builds trust.
Sure.
Clarifying expectations. So many problems arise from unstated or misunderstood expectations about roles and goals. Get things clear up front.
Makes sense. Fourth.
Attending to the little things. Small kindnesses, courtesies, signs of respect, they add up. Neglecting them can feel like indifference.
Fifth is showing integrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being honest, avoiding duplicity, aligning your actions with your words, living the principles you espouse.
And finally, if you mess up,
Apologizing sincerely when you make a withdrawal. Taking responsibility quickly, genuinely, and making amends if possible. It shows humility and respect.
and he warns against conditional love, right? Making deposits only when someone meets your expectations.
Yes, that can actually create counterdependence, rebellion. True deposits are often made unconditionally. It takes character, sometimes courage, to make deposits, especially when an account is low. He shares a personal story about rebuilding a relationship that took consistent effort over time.
And that idea of seeing relationship problems as opportunities.
Right. P problems are PC opportunities. Production problems, the issues, are chances to build production capability, the relationship, the trust. It reframes challenges constructively.
Okay, so with a healthy EBA as the foundation, we get to habit 4.
Habit 4, think win-win. This is the first of the public victory habits. It's a mindset, a philosophy for human interaction.
Believing that there's enough for everyone and that solutions can be mutually beneficial.
Exactly. It's seeking mutual benefit in all interactions. It's based on that abundance mentality we touched on earlier.
Contrasted with the other paradigm.
Right. Win-lose. If I win, you lose. Very common, often learned early through competition, comparisons. Lose-win, go ahead, have your way. Capitulation, being a doormat. Lose-lose when conflict escalates and everyone suffers. And just plain win, focusing only on getting what you want regardless of others.
But in situations where you depend on each other.
Win-lose-lose-win and lose-lose are ultimately unsustainable. If one person feels like they lost, the relationship suffers, future cooperation is damaged. Long-term, Covey argues, if it's not a win for both, it's eventually a loss for both.
So win-win is the goal. But what if you can't find a win-win solution?
Then the higher form of win-win is win-win or no deal.
Meaning,
If you can't find a solution that truly benefits both parties, you agree to disagree agreeably. No deal. This preserves the relationship and avoids forcing a bad compromise that creates resentment later. It requires courage.
and achieving win-win isn't just about attitude, is it? There are dimensions to it.
5 key dimensions, yes. First, character, you need integrity, maturity, balancing courage and consideration, and that abundance mentality. Second, relationships built on trust, on that EBA. Third, agreements they need to clearly define desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences, all within a win-win framework.
So the structure supports it.
Exactly. Fourth, supportive systems, your organizational culture, compensation systems, etc., need to reward win-win, not win-lose. Fifth, process is how you actually arrive at the win-win solution, which often involves habits 5 and 6.
And that abundance mentality versus scarcity mentality is key.
Absolutely critical. Scarcity sees life as a fixed pie. If you get a bigger piece, mine is smaller. Abundance sees possibilities for growth, creativity, finding third alternatives where everyone gets more. That sales training example highlights how shifting from scarcity to abundance unlocked cooperation and learning.
Okay, win-win mindset. What's habit 5?
Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is the habit of empathic communication.
Listening to understand, truly understand, before you try to get your own point across.
Yes. And it's probably the single biggest deposit you can make in the emotional bank account. Giving someone the psychological air of feeling deeply heard and understood.
Like the doctor needing to diagnose before prescribing.
Perfect analogy. How often do we jump in with solutions or advice before we've really taken the time to understand the other person's perspective, their concerns, their reality? He tells that story about his sick child, Jenny, emphasizing how vital it was that the doctor got the full picture.
We tend to listen autobiographically, right?
Yeah, through our own filters. We evaluate, agree, disagree. We probe, ask questions from our own frame. We advise, give counsel based on our experience, or we interpret, figure out their motives based on our own. None of these is truly listening to understand them.
So what is empathic listening?
It involves listening with your ears, eyes, and heart. Paying attention to body language, tone, and feeling, not just words. The skills progress from just mimicking content to rephrasing content to reflecting feeling
Capturing the emotion behind the words.
to finally the highest level, which combines rephrasing content and reflecting feeling. It shows you're really tracking with them both intellectually and emotionally.
But it has to be genuine, right? Not a technique.
Absolutely. If the intent isn't sincere, people will feel manipulated. It stems from a genuine desire to understand. But when you do understand, it's incredibly efficient. Problems get solved faster. Relationships deepen.
And understanding the differences in perception is key for interdependence.
Crucial. Once you understand where someone else is coming from, even if you disagree, you can work together much more effectively. Like those labor negotiations, understanding the union's real concerns paved the way for a collaborative solution. It moves beyond adversarial positions.
It leads to better solutions because you have more accurate data.
Exactly. And it allows you to tailor your own prescription or presentation seeking to be understood much more effectively because you know the other person's reality.
Which brings us nicely to habit 6.
Habit 6, synergize.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
That's the essence of it. Synergy is about creative cooperation. It's about valuing differences, mental, emotional, psychological, and using those differences to create new possibilities, third alternatives that simply didn't exist before.
So it's not just compromise where everyone gives something up.
No, compromise is often 1 + 1 = 1.5. Synergy is 1 + 1 = 3 or 10 or 100. It's about genuine creation that comes from respecting and integrating different perspectives. Covey calls it the highest activity in life.
The culmination of the other habits working together.
Precisely. You need to be proactive. Habit 1, have an end in mind. Habit 2, put first things first. Habit 3, think win-win. Habit 4, and seek first to understand. Habit 5, to create the conditions for synergy.
He shares that powerful story about the insurance company retreat.
Yes, where teaching these principles unlocked incredible creative energy and allowed them to see their challenges and opportunities in a completely new, synergistic way.
And the example of the couple, husband wants to go fishing, wife wants to visit her sick mother.
Right. A compromise might be splitting the weekend. Synergy involves deeply understanding both needs, habit 5, with a win-win attitude, habit 4, to find a third alternative that honors both desires more fully. Maybe they find a way to do both or find a different activity that meets the underlying needs even better.
It requires valuing those differences, doesn't it? Seeing them as strengths, not weaknesses.
Absolutely. If two people have the same opinion, one is unnecessary, right? Differences create the potential for synergy, but you need high trust, EBA, and good communication, habit 5, to navigate them effectively. Otherwise, differences lead to conflict.
Like the animal school fable, trying to make everyone the same destroys potential.
Exactly. Synergy celebrates diversity. It creates psychological air, releases energy, and leads to insights none could have reached alone. It's like ecology in nature. The relationships between diverse elements create something much richer.
So after all this building private victories, public victories, synergy, what's left?
Habit 7. Sharpen the saw. This is the habit of renewal.
Taking time to recharge, to maintain yourself.
Yes, preserving and enhancing your greatest asset, you. It's about renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature: physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional.
Like the woodcutter who's too busy sawing to sharpen his saw.
And becomes less and less effective. Habit 7 ensures you remain effective by investing in your own capacity. It's the ultimate quadrant 2 activity.
So the physical dimension.
Exercise, nutrition, rest, stress management, taking care of your body. It affects everything. Energy, attitude, mental clarity. It directly impacts habit 1, your proactivity.
Even though it feels like you don't have time.
Investing that time gives you more effective time later. It's a high leverage activity.
Okay, spiritual dimension.
This is about connecting with your core values, your purpose, your inner self. It could be through meditation, prayer, nature, music, reading, inspiring literature. It renews your commitment to habit 2, your end in mind. Arthur Gordon's story about renewal at the beach captures this beautifully.
Dimension.
Keeping your mind sharp. Reading, learning, writing, planning, visualizing. Continuing education, expanding your horizons. This fuels habit 3, putting first things first, by improving your ability to organize and execute.
And the social emotional dimension.
This links back to habits 4, 5, and 6. It's about nurturing relationships, making EBA deposits, practicing empathic listening, seeking synergy, contributing to others. It's also about how we see others, scripting them positively, believing in their potential.
Like that story about the bright and dumb kids living up to expectations.
Exactly. Our belief in others can be a powerful force for renewal, both for them and for the relationship.
So renewing each dimension strengthens the other habit.
Yes, it's an upward spiral. Consistent, balanced renewal in all 4 areas increases your capacity to live all the 7 habits more effectively. It requires dedication, but the payoff is continuous growth and improvement. It's the law of the harvest. You reap what you sow consistently.
Wow. It really is a comprehensive system, isn't it? From the inside out.
It really is. And it all comes back to that fundamental space between stimulus and response. We have the power to choose, to live by principles, to constantly improve.
You know, applying these ideas, even just this.
Definitely. The whole Franklin Covey organization was built around operationalizing these principles for individuals and businesses worldwide.
So to sum it all up, what's the core message for listeners today?
I think it's that the 7 habits offer this principle-centered, character-based path to being more effective. It starts inside, with mastering yourself, being proactive, knowing your destination, prioritizing what matters.
And then moves outward, building trust through the emotional bank account, seeking mutual benefit, win-win, truly understanding others, habit 5, and creating synergy, habit 6.
And underpinning it all is continuous renewal, habit 7. Keeping yourself sharp physically, spiritually, mentally, and socially, emotionally. It's an interconnected whole.
So some key takeaways. Really examine your paradigms. Choose to be proactive. Define your end in mind. Focus on quadrant 2. Build trust. Think win-win. Listen empathically. Value differences. And never stop renewing yourself.
Well put. And maybe a final thought for people to chew on. Think about your own life right now. What's one small shift, maybe in a paradigm you hold? Or one habit you could start practicing, even imperfectly, that you suspect could create the biggest positive ripple effect?
What single change could open that gate of change for you?
Exactly. Something to reflect on.
That's a great place to leave it. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into the 7 habits of highly effective people. We hope exploring these ideas gives you some tools and inspiration for your own journey towards effectiveness.